Right there. Right there.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. It is Doc, and we have another client coming into the shop. We're going to break some things down for you. All right. So this is going to be for SDI's Scope and Optics course. Covering this up for a video. Let's hit this. So customer brings in a Remington's Model 700. I know, frequent flyer here. With the wooden stock and the Vortex HSLR scope. All right. So she comes in planning for an antelope hunt, and she's going to be engaging targets at an estimation of about 200 yards. All right. So she comes in, and according to her, she is not getting the kind of accuracy and reliability coming from this weapon system at even 100 yards. So we have a list of questions on the right. I'm going to scroll through those, and we're going to hit those up, and we're going to use lovely gun disassembly on the left, so that way I can manipulate and show you guys what we're going to be looking at and the locations on that weapon system and the processes to give this old girl right here a checkup. So we're going to summarize the procedures you would follow to inspect the barrel, muzzle, and include prep work you may have to complete if the barrel has copper fouling. So first thing we're going to do when we approach any firearm, right, any sort of weapon system, we're going to make sure that we have positive confirmation of the condition of that weapon. So we're going to be clearing it. So we can always bring it on over to the right side of this weapon. This small lever on the right side, just behind the bolt, is going to be our safety. Articulates to the rear, marks that weapon unsafe. Push her forward. Guess what? It's fun mode. So we're going to have this weapon on safe just for a moment for us. All right. So for the ability of me able to manipulate the action and push into X-ray mode, I'm going to have it loaded in this simulation. But the process you would do it would be to place weapon on safe, if allowing, manipulate the bolt, open the chamber, remove any live rounds, ammunition, or debris from that visually and physically. You're going to take that booger hook and inspect to make sure there's nothing dancing around in the chamber of that weapon. After we have it in a safe condition, I would recommend and prefer, if it is a bolt action rifle or you have the ability to remove the bolt or a bolt carrier group on other weapon systems. Someone is having a really bad day, my apologies. I would suggest doing it so that way you have a lot more, a lot more clarity, so that way you can get your eyes down there and just get that first initial glance. You'll always have the ability, since the weapon is clear, there is no bolt on there. You can use a small flashlight or a form of illumination, such as a lamp or what have you, to place down towards the muzzle end of the weapon, over here, and see down it to make sure how well of a condition it is. And then you can run that bore snake camera down there and get all of the nice views of the lands and grooves that are sitting inside this weapon's rifling, which in this version it decided to make it smooth bore. So let's pretend that there's rifling in there. You're going to be checking to make sure that there's no oxidation, rust, leftover brass, carbon fouling, I don't know, dagum pipe cleaners, because the internet. Then if we come across copper fouling, I recommend using a cleaning solution that is dedicated for removing said copper fouling from projectiles flying down that muzzle. And then run it through bore snake, until you have the desired necessary cleanliness of that barrel. Awesome. Now, what will you do if the crown is chipped, and a way to figure out if you happen to have a chipped, cut, or damaged crown is when you take the weapon to get zeroed, or you're, plunking holes in paper, you're getting a Z or a more sporadic pattern with your grouping, which is coming from those burrs making gouging or damage to that copper jacket, and then throwing off the stability of those rounds as they are in flight and traveling their route of trajectory. It's going to mess it up. And that's one way to indicate it. Obviously, visual inspection. Every time you're done shooting, you should be clearing and giving your weapon a head-to-toe good inspection, checking for those things. But hey, the world's not perfect, so that's why we get our jobs. So if you happen to see those chipped or debris, there is the process in which clear it. So I believe Brownells comes out with a crown reamer, which is beneficial and literally is designed to remove those burrs on the forward most closest to the end of that muzzle portion of the crown. It is involved with the ability of placing lapping powder and circularly rotating that device in the crown, buffing and polishing to remove those burrs. Now, if you have any other extremes to where, I don't know, the muzzle of the gun decided to Looney Tune, then in that case we're going to have to go into further remedies, such as, if possible, if they still want to keep that barrel, removing the entire muzzle device. If possible, if they have a straight cut, then you're going to have to possibly, within legal parameters, remove your front sight post, cut back on the barrel, remount your front sight post, and then you're going to have to buy a new iron sight if that is what you're using to sighting. Otherwise, your bullet drop compensator inside your optics for that qualified ammunition, dotic, and ballistic qualifications are going to be completely thrown off, and you're going to have to relearn it. What would you do if you happen to come across a bore which is rust pitted? Now, we're not talking about surface rust to where you accidentally left your shovel outside during the winter and you come back and you see that little bit of surface rust, that little bit of WD-40 and a brace of pad that you took from mom's sink takes off. No. We're talking about levels of oxidation that begin to create that layering and small freckle-like holes on iron-based metallic surfaces, which a common way that people tend to see it would be generally around vehicles in environments that have winter road conditions, where it starts to flake and pop. Well, right before that, you get that soft pittingness of that. That's what we're talking about. Or if you ever come across those old Civil War cannons that sit outside government buildings. Well, you obviously don't want rusted metal on your weapon system because, hey, it turns your rifle into a pipe bomb right next to your face. So, beneficial way of that would be to initially place that anti-rust solution and run it through with a muzzle brush, and then if you cannot remove those deep wall pittings, then you're going to have to retone the rifling of your barrel. My apologies, I have a frog in my throat. Retone down and then retrace those threads of those lands and grooves inside the rifling of your barrel. Reinspect. If those, if the pitting has happened to be too deep and that ramification of that, I would strongly suggest replacing the barrel and going into a further inspection of other parts of that weapon to ensure that those parts are not compromised and experiencing pitting or those microfractures that will become bigger under duress or under extensive use and high changes in temperature, which happens rapidly in a firearm. Summarize the process in which you have to inspect the lockup of the bolt lugs. So, I'm going to zoom in a little closer over here. And we're going to place this weapon on X-ray mode. We're going to go a little heavier here, everybody. There we go. So, wow, this frog in my throat. It's giving me trouble. Anyway, so right here is going to be the bolt of the Remington 700. Boop. See, bolt. So on the forward portion of the bolt, you're going to have these two outlets or bolt accoutrements, which are going to be your locking lugs. These two are what essentially prevents your entire bolt right here going straight in the opposite direction when you fire your weapon. So these two surfaces right here, these two little flat pads stop this entire 7 or 8 millimeter cartridge from making the weapon explode. So you want to ensure the fact that you are having proper lockup, aka maximizing the surface contact between the male and female end of those locking lugs. It really shows you a poor example, but the green surfaces between those actual locking lugs. All right. So let's see if we go over to version 4. That does not help me one bit. So what you would do would be to remove the barrel or remove the entire action from the stock, place it inside a corresponding bench block, strapping that bench block to a vise, utilizing a proper sanding tool, a marking material. Place the marking material on the actual bolt lugs, attach the adapter and kit, which will be inside the video description of a couple of brands, most likely from MidwayUSA, and rotating to allowing those abrasive materials to impact and slowly lower down by thousandths of an inch to remove those high spots and allow an increased area of surface contact between those bolt lugs and their corresponding female counterparts inside the breech. After every few cycles or rotations, you will inspect the bolt to ensure that the marking material that you used has been fully removed, which shows that that has worked. Awesome. What will you do if there is any lugs that do not contact the chamber recesses? Oh, well, I just explained that as well. And they what is one useful technique for lapping a Remington action? So we're going to move back a little further here. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to slow-mo fire this weapon. All right. Bring it down to this speed. And then we are going to fire. And I'm going to pause this so that way I can get to the part that I want. Then retract. Oh, my apologies, everybody. I'm a little rusty here. So, you see that surface area for when that bolt is being cycled, how it rides along on these rail-like protuberances within the action. Those are obviously surface areas that create friction. Well, guess what? Over the past 100 and something years of humanity using bolt action rifles, we figured out a way to come around this problem. Also, a product by MidwayUSA, which is also going to be in the description, happens to have a very, very beneficial tool that utilizes high grit sandpapers to where you can remove the bolt. It fits into the area to where the bolt will have the recess. where the bolt happens to marry the rest of the weapon, and within resembling you cycling the action, removes those microscopic layers from the weapon, so it allows a lot more clear and frictionless, smooth operation of the action. Also, make sure your weapons are properly lubricated. Too much lube may slog the weapon. Too little lube, obviously, will create friction, make it dry, make it harder, and then you're going to be looking like most of those people that you watch on YouTube operating most of the gun action with a hammer. As always, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your fingers straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep your weapon unsafe until you intend to fire. Know your target will lies beyond it. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. If you guys are not experiencing good times right now, look down in my description. Scroll past all of the products that I've generally mentioned and processes that I've used today, and contact those resources to reach the help that you need. Trust me, we all love you. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Welcome to Dan Doc's channel.